You live inside a psychological prison. But here's the thing, you can't see the bars. It's been built brick by brick from a lifetime of flawed thinking, emotional attachments, and a deep, gut-level fear of just admitting you were wrong. And it's what keeps you stuck. It keeps you mediocre, defending decisions that are actively destroying your potential. This is an unspoken rule, and we're here to shatter it.
You like to believe you're a logical person, right? That you weigh the costs and benefits before you act? But that's a comforting delusion. The harsh truth is, the vast majority of your choices are driven by hidden psychological programs, these deeply ingrained biases that care more about protecting your ego than ensuring your success. Our purpose here isn't to make you feel good. It's to expose these truths, to hand you the tools to see reality as it actually is, not as your flawed mind wants it to be. So let's begin.
Let's start with a pretty brutal diagnosis. You are subconsciously addicted to your own failing patterns. Now, this isn't because you enjoy pain. It's a defense mechanism. See, you would rather continue to pour your life, your time, your energy into a losing battle than face the sharp psychological sting of admitting you made a mistake. You've heard the saying, throwing good money after bad. But that's a massive oversimplification. This isn't just about your bank account. It's about cognitive dissonance, that deep, uncomfortable feeling you get when you hold two conflicting beliefs at once. On one hand, I am a smart person who makes good decisions. And on the other, this thing I chose is, well, it's clearly failing. So to resolve that painful inner conflict, what do? You cling to the failing project, the draining career, the dead-end relationship. You double down, not because you really believe it's going to succeed, but because letting go forces you to look in the mirror and confront your own bad judgment. The investment is already gone, but your pride is still on the line.
Okay, so let's get specific. Let's identify the lines of faulty code that are running in your mind right now. And these aren't just your personal quirks, they are universal bugs in the human operating system that keep the average person, well, average. Understanding them is the very first step toward rewriting them.
So here it is, the big one. It's called the sunk cost fallacy. This is the master program of mediocrity. It's the reason you'll finish a terrible meal you already paid for or sit through a horrible movie. It's like you think consuming more of a bad thing is somehow going to justify the initial cost. It's this completely irrational urge to honor past investments that are already gone, they're unrecoverable, by making future decisions that go directly against your own best interests. You're basically trying to fix the past by sacrificing your future. And that is a game you can never, ever win.
And you see this play out in the high-stakes world of finance all the time. They even have a name for it, the disposition effect. Investors, and we're talking both amateurs and pros, will sell their profitable stocks way too early just to lock in that feeling of a win. But they'll cling to their losing stocks for dear life, just praying they'll recover. See, they're not managing a portfolio, they're managing their emotions. They're prioritizing the short-term pride of a small gain over the long-term, rational path to building real wealth.
And all of this, well, it gets us to the root cause. This isn't just a bad habit you can shake off. It's a fundamental glitch in our wiring. A concept proven by Nobel laureates Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. It's called loss aversion. Your brain wasn't built to guide you toward gain. It was hardwired to protect you from loss, even at a completely irrational cost. And when you look at the numbers, you really start to see how lopsided this is. The psychological pain of losing, say, $100 is roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure you get from gaining $100. Think about that. This asymmetry is the engine that drives all this irrationality. It makes you take huge risks when you should be cutting your losses, and it makes you play it safe when you should be letting your winners ride. Your brain isn't playing to win, it's desperately, frantically playing not to lose.
So, how in the world do you break this programming? Let's dive into a masterclass in escaping this very trap. A high-stakes corporate resurrection that literally shows us the way forward. Think about this. Back in 1997, Apple was a total disaster. Fortune magazine called them a paragon of dysfunctional management and fumbled techno dreams. They weren't just failing, they were actively bleeding out. They were just 90 days away from complete collapse. This was a company that was literally drowning in its own sunk costs.
So when Steve Jobs came back, he didn't try to fix everything. No, he took a machete to the product line. As you can see here, Apple was making around 350 different products. It was a total crisis of focus. He ruthlessly cut 70% of them, completely ignoring the years of time and millions of dollars that had already been poured into them.
And the scale of the failure he was walking into, it was just staggering.
In the fiscal year of his return, Apple posted a loss of over $1 billion. That number represents the massive weight of all their past mistakes, the accumulated cost of indecision and emotional attachment to projects that were going nowhere.
But then, look at this. The result of that brutal, honest assessment was incredible. Just 1 year later, after cutting all that dead weight and completely ignoring the sunk costs, Apple turned a $309 million profit. The turnaround is immediate, it was absolute, and it's probably the single greatest piece of evidence that freeing yourself from the past is the absolute prerequisite for any future success.
And Jobs boiled this whole philosophy down to this one simple sentence. True strategic genius isn't about adding more things. It's about subtraction. It's about having the discipline and the emotional guts to abandon your pet projects, to walk away from the losing bets, and to sever the ties that are chaining you to a mediocre present.
But having this kind of discipline is incredibly rare. Netflix themselves fell right into the trap in 2011 with that whole Quickster debacle, a pivot that cost them 800,000 subscribers. And yet, years earlier, that same company gave us a masterclass in how to avoid it. Back in 2007, CEO Reed Hastings eliminated the Netflix Player, a hardware device that had been in development for years, just weeks before it was supposed to launch. He wrote off that immense sunk cost to secure their future as a software company. So you have one company, two totally different choices. The path of escape is always there if you're willing to take it.
So, you've seen the trap, and you've seen the escape. Now let's get practical. Let's give you the mental frameworks, the operating code that titans of industry use to immunize themselves against this kind of flawed thinking. These are not theories. Think of them as weapons for your mind.
First up, we've got the regret minimization framework, developed by Jeff Bezos. When he was deciding whether to leave his secure Wall Street job to start Amazon, he didn't focus on the sunk cost of his career. Instead, he projected himself forward to age 80. And he asked a totally different question. Which outcome would he regret more? Staying put or trying and failing? The answer was obvious. The pain of a potential failure was nothing compared to the lifelong haunt of regret.
And here's another one, a powerful thought experiment from former Intel CEO Andy Grove. When Intel was trapped by its emotional investment in a failing business, he asked his co-founder this simple, brutal question. The answer was immediate. They would get us out of it. This framework forces you to detach. It rips your ego and your emotional baggage out of the equation, and it lets you see your career, your business, your life with the cold, hard objectivity of an outsider. Look, at the end of the day, your success, your freedom, your entire life is a direct result of the mental operating system you are currently running. So you have to ask yourself, are you still running the default programming, loss aversion, regret avoidance, the sunk cost fallacy? Or have you made a conscious decision to install a superior system, one that's based on forward-looking logic and the courage to just abandon what is no longer serving you? The past is gone. Your losses are unrecoverable. The only question that matters now is what you do next. Will you continue to be governed by these invisible chains and this flawed programming, forever defending the mistakes of your past? Or will you make a commitment right now to awareness, to seeing reality as it truly is? Hitting that subscribe button is your first decision. It's a declaration that you are done with self-deception. Comment below with one sunk cost you will now cut from your life. The installation begins now.